Welcome back to the TwinSpires Jury. I'm Ashley Anderson from the hotel in Richmond, Virginia. I am on site, well, not really on site right now, but in town for Arlington Million weekend, as well as Nick, who is in a very similar but different hotel room. And then we're here with Darin Zoccali and James Scully to talk our best bets for that Arlington Million card. We'll look at the Grade 2 Secretariat, the Grade 2 Beverly D, and the Grade 1 Arlington Million, and then, of course, give our rapid fire fades at the end of the show. And Darin will talk about our promos and tournaments in the middle of all that. But let's start off with the Grade 2 Secretariat. It's going to be race 9 on Saturday. We do have 7 stakes on the 12 race card and an all stakes late pick 5 starting in race 7. And let's see, I will start with James today. Tell me what your play is in the Secretariat.
I'm going to go with number 7, Cairo Caper. I thought that last year, I liked his series of races where he broke his maiden and won the Sore Free Stakes. He actually beat Dream On that day. Those were sprints at Woodbine. Then he finished 5th in the Grade 1 Summer. Came back this year in the Woodhaven. I didn't think he had the best of trips, might have needed the race, but I really liked his effort in the Penn Mile. I thought Dream Run got the best of trips that day up the inside. He got floated out, finished really well, and I look for him to keep moving forward off of those efforts, and I think his tactical ability will also benefit him in a race that didn't have a lot of pace.
Darin, what are your thoughts on this race?
Yeah, I like Giacoso from the inside, mainly because he's coming out of a series of races that I think he's been facing better competition. And I'm not sure how good the horses coming out of the Penn Mile, including Dream On, really are. I mean, I know he won the Woodhaven, Penn Mile. You take a look at some of the horses he's beaten. The one time he ran against Zulu Kingdom, he was essentially a non-factor, beaten about 15 lengths on the wire. Giacoso last time out in the American turf from a Ragozin standpoint ran a number that was about 4 points faster than anything anybody else in the field has run, which is pretty stark. He was a good winner. You're getting a look at the allowance victory last fall at Churchill Downs where he stalked, rated, and pounced here. I thought this was a very professional win and certainly one that elevated him into stakes competition. They put him on dirt. You could draw a complete line through the Risen Star Stakes. They tried synthetic in the Jeff Ruby, made an aggressive move on the far turn before tiring late. And then the American turf, he made one big wide late run. But again, that was obviously a grade 1 behind Zulu Kingdom and Test Score, both graded stakes winners next out. And Zulu Kingdom is probably the best three-year-old horse on turf in the country at this point. So I think 6-1 on Giacoso is extreme value when comparing him to the rest of the field. So Ben Curtis, Keith DeSormo, good number, good enough for me.
I feel like I'm hearing more and more people talk about this horse, and clearly
I'm not
this
getting
horse
6-1.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Clearly the horse is better on turf. Did try to make it onto was on the Derby trail, but it didn't quite make it to the Derby. But does look like one that American turf that you just talked about certainly can take away from that this horse will come in very strong in this field. But Nick, you like the morning line favorite, so tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a boring horse to like, but I've had some affinity for Dream On, and as Aaron alluded to, Giacoso has a big advantage on not only the Ragozins but the Thoroughgraphs, where he earned a 6 last time out, and that's a much, much better number than anybody in here has run. For comparison's sake, Dream On ran an 8 in last year's summer and has not even come back to that as a 3-year-old, which leads me to believe he's still got some room to move forward. I think the problem with the Penn Mile and the Penn Oaks, and there's an alumna from the Penn Oaks running in Saturday Saratoga Oaks, is that they were both run over a turf course that was taking moisture as the races took place. And I think both were run with very slow early paces. And I think that skewed the final time. I believe that race should be faster from a speed figure perspective. I could end up on an island with that opinion, though, and I'm willing to acknowledge. So I think Dream On's at his best at a mile. I think he is also versatile enough to get a little bit closer. And when I talked to Ben Curtis this morning, he mentioned Giacoso being a little bit closer because he did feel like he was too far back in the American turf because there's really not a lot of speed in here. And James alluded to that. Maui Strong, it's kind of funny, 4 of us made picks in this race and nobody picked Maui Strong, who looks like the lone speed. But I'm hopeful that Dream On is able to at least stay relatively close. And, I think in terms of body of work, other than that Columbia, where he did have a bit of a wide trip, he's run well in pretty much every start on turf. And I'm looking for him to just finally put it all together at a higher level and take this grade 2.
I almost went with Dream On, but ended up trying to take a shot with a horse that is moving up in class. But I went with number 4, Simulate, at 8-1, and this is a Bill Mott horse who's making his 5th career start. But last out had a 95 bris net speed figure and an allowance optional claimer at Saratoga, and 1 by 2 1/4 lengths. Was racing on Lasix the last 2 starts, but I do think there's a lot of upside with this horse moving up in class here, trying graded stakes company. So wanting to try to go for a price here, even though I do think the 8 is going to be tough to beat. I did feel like it was a little difficult to play against Dream On. Just wanted to get creative because I felt like there was a lot of chalk, I would say, in some of these stakes races, but wanted to just, go for a price here.
This is a horse I'll say I'm really looking forward to them stretching him out. Ultimately, he can win at a mile. I have no doubt about it. But he has the profile of a horse that's really going to take to going longer. And when you can get the mile on a 16th in late July of your 2-year-old season, it usually speaks to your distance abilities. But even in that replay where he had the mother of all perfect trips, but still he had to run his race, he's striding out like crazy in that final 16th of a mile. So tomorrow might be the right day, but I even look forward to seeing this horse go longer in the future.
Let's move over to the Grade 2 Beverly D, which is going to be at 1 3/16 of a mile, post time 5:17 p.m., and it's race 10 at Colonial. So, Darin, who is your top play in this race?
Yeah, I love Beach Bomb in here. I know Be Your Best is going to be a popular play and gets a lot of money coming off that win at Santa Anita. And Safi Joseph certainly has done tremendous work in getting this mare up to a new level. But Beach Bomb, short field, yes, their speeds are outside in Charlene's Dream. But Beach Bomb can go to the front. I think she can run well, sitting second also. There's nothing wrong with her effort in the New York last time out where she ran second behind She Feels Pretty, who's obviously, even though she came up just like a nose short in her subsequent try, the best 3-year-old turf filly, I think, in the country. And I thought Beach Bomb ran her eyeballs out here to go with her down to the wire. This was an extremely impressive performance. And again, in a short field where she's one of a couple of horses that want to be close, I just think it's an extremely advantageous spot for her. So at 4-1, I think that's fair value considering that she was able to run what She Feels Pretty all the way to the wire. It's a pretty simple approach here, but I didn't think this was a race that I wanted to get overly creative. So I'll go with the sharpening up horse that's run well against extremely good competition.
Nick, what about you?
Yeah, I'm on Spanish Eyes. I think James is as well. So I'll say what I have and hopefully leave some out so that he can fill in. But this is a horse that I think I hear a lot of chatter about, and I'm wondering where she's going to land price wise. I also, Darin, don't think you're going to get 4-1 on Beach Bomb either, who is going to go off shorter than that. But Spanish Eyes ran well in the Robert G. Dick Memorial last out, which was at 1 3/8. And this is a filly who got bet down to 6-5 favoritism in her North American debut. And obviously, as Ben Curtis kind of told me this morning, he wishes he had that one back. She got into a little traffic on the inside. He was trying to do the right thing and save ground. She just never really got a split. The distance is the question. I think 1 3/16 is fine. I wish it was going to come in a little bit faster paced race, but she can kick on. And we saw that quick move from the 3/8 pole home last time out of Delaware. So if she can duplicate that, I thought she'd be dangerous. I'll be honest, guys. I thought any of the 2, 3, 5, and 6 could win this race, and I wanted the best price of the 4 of them. So that's why I went to Spanish Eyes, because I think it's pretty safe to say she'll be the longest price of those 4.
James, what are your reasonings for liking Spanish Eyes?
Yeah, I agree with what Nick was saying. I thought that the start in the Robert Dick Memorial last time really essentially cost her the race. It was a poor break, and Marksman Queen had everything her own way, and she still desperately needed the wire to hold off Spanish Eyes. One thing is, I think Charlene's Dream, they tried to be a little bit more patient last time, press in second. It didn't work out in that Anchorage Stakes at Churchill Downs. So I think she's sending her 2 best races, and it came on the front end. Be Your Best has been committed to being forward since Safi Joseph has taken over her training, and it'll be interesting to see. I know Beach Bomb looks like she could sit in that catbird seat, but she's a little bit speedy as well. So I do think there's a potential for at least a solid pace, and I think it's going to set up well for Spanish Eyes if she's good enough in her 3rd start this year for Brendan Walsh.
Well, I am hoping for more than a solid pace because I went with Duvet Day, who's going to need to close late in this race to get the win. And there is a little concern. She is 0 for 5 at the distance with two third place finishes. But when racing at a mile and a half at Santa Anita, she was right there in the stretch and just beating a nose. So I don't think the distance is really that much of a question, just what the pace is going to be. And she could improve third off the layoff here. So again, trying to play against the favorite, even though I do think it is a worthy favorite. I wanted to go with the late closer from the outside, and it is a small field. I do think the six has a shot. Probably will get something around 3-1 and maybe even a little bit higher since there's a lot of hype around Spanish Eyes and Beach Bomb, as you all have talked about.
Darin, were you at all worried that Beach Bomb ran as well as she did last out because of the wet turf?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. It's certainly a possibility because she's never run over a course like that here. And I kind of went back and forth on that. But where I settled was just her last four races are all so good that I just kind of landed on the notion that maybe she's just getting very good right now. I could be wrong, and maybe she regresses off this, but I thought her previous three efforts at especially the two at Gulfstream, which are not run obviously over a soft turf
Right.
course, are indicative of just a filly that might just be getting very good at this point in time of her career.
Yeah, I mean, I think so rarely do we classify turf courses accurately. However, we all know that course was yielding, right? We all
Yeah.
saw the rain that fell all throughout the afternoon, and it felt like she had hinted at being good prior to that, but she got really good, and I just felt like I attributed it to a wet turf course. But I think you make a good case for her otherwise, and I had liked her going into that race anyway, so I have to kind of like her again.
Well, rounding it out, we have race 11, the Grade 1 Arlington Million at 1.25 miles on the outer turf at Colonial, post time 5:54 p.m. Eastern time. Nick, tell me why you like integration.
Yeah, guys, I think when push comes to shove, I think integration is better than these horses. I think he's proven it time and again. And other than having a little bit of trouble in the Turf Classic, he's had a pretty darn good run of it for quite a while now. And I think 1.25 miles is really right in his sweet spot. He's run particularly well at Colonial in the past, ran second in this race last year, won the Virginia Derby. Looks like a horse that just really relishes the wide turns. I think Reeve McGahee, Shug's assistant, told you that, Ashley, when we talked to him this morning. And I feel like he'll put it all together here. He was rolling late in the Manhattan, which is the race we're watching the replay of. Johnny angled him out just outside the eighth pole. And, when he hits his stride, he levels off and he just really flies home. I mean, he's got about a 5-length deficit here and ends up missing in this race by a head. And, if you're known by the company you keep, then he's the most popular in here as well, because Deterministic came back to win a Grade 1. Farbridge came back and won the Bowling Green, and will be the favorite in the Grade 1 Sword Dancer on Saturday. So this was a good race where I thought Integration ran at what normally would be a winning race in the Manhattan and just came up a little bit short. So I think this is his time to shine. I think he gets the right pace set up as well, which is something that is always an issue for him. He likes to come from deep in the pack, but things should set up quite well.
I'll just go right ahead since I'm on the same pick as you, Nick. And we already know that the 2-time song is going to go right out to the front. Same with the 4, I believe. Ethan West indicated that he was probably going to go for the front as well. So I do think we'll get a hot enough pace for integration. I do like a stablemate Fort Washington as well, but I do think it's time for integration to get that Grade 1 win. He's 0 for 8 in Grade 1s, but so close last out. And if he's going to get a Grade 1, it's going to be this race. He was a runner-up last year, and I thought ran a good second to Nation's Pride in this race last year. And I think this time at a short price, I don't like the short price, but I will go ahead and back a favorite this time in the Arlington Million. James, what about you?
Well, you guys showed that replay of the Manhattan, and I'm hoping for the exact same thing because Integration has 1 win in his last 8 graded stakes attempts, but he's got 3 runner-up finishes and a 3rd in there, and he's going to be running late. He's shown an affinity for Colonial Turf, but I'm going to go with Grand Senada, and I like the fact that after being more of a deep closer type, he has been able to race up closer in a couple of outings this year at a similar distance to 10 furlongs, going 1 mile and 3/8 in the McDermott back in March. He's basically stalked the pace within a couple of lengths until coming up a next short and second. And then last time in the UN, he didn't really get off to a good start, but got hustled up there. And I thought was in good positioning and just got out finished by a horse in redistricting that's really coming off for Chad Brown and had really shown an affinity for that turf course. But those two efforts, to me, indicate that he's going to be able to race closer to the action than both Fort Washington and Integration, who I have as deep closing types. Fort Washington, I've got questions about the 10 furlong distance. And I just look for Grand Senada to get the jump on those late runners. Coming off the turn, I hope he's in position to make his move with Tyler Gaffleone and hold off any late runners in the Arlington Million. So I'm going with number 7, Grand Senada.
And Darin, you like the Kentucky Derby winner who was trying turf for the first time.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of flack for this pick on social media, but that's okay. Look, I'm a speed figure guy, and obviously Mystic Dan has never run on turf. That being said, his last 2 figures, including this effort that you're watching here, where he ran 4th in the Stephen Foster, these figures are faster than what the other horses run on turf. They just are, especially from a Ragozin standpoint. I admittedly have absolutely no idea if this horse is going to take to turf. It wouldn't surprise me if he won the race. It wouldn't surprise me if he ran dead last. But again, if he runs back to his last 2 figures, maybe with the exception of integration, he's much faster than the rest of these horses. I can't guarantee that it's going to transition from one surface to the other. Integration is going to be close to odds on in here. Fort Washington, I have questions on going 1.25 miles. Cairo, who's going to take money, hasn't won a race in 2 years and could be overbet off of a race where he was 100-1. Granted, he ran a tremendous race in the Queen Anne, but he was 100-1 for a reason. And once you start, checking those boxes on some of these horses, if I don't want to take even money on integration, I have questions about Fort Washington at the distance, and Cairo, I think, is going to be overbet off that last race. Where do I land? And I'll just land on the horse that's coming off of the fastest last 2 races and hope he can do it on turf. That's pretty much it.
It's interesting you'll have questions with Fort Washington in the distance because Reeve McGay, he sounded pretty confident with the distance. And I feel like even though he wasn't great in the United Nations running longer, he was closing well that day.
Yeah, see, that's the thing, though. I mean, I've owned horses for 5 years, and Ethan West has trained for us, and there are times that he's been dead on about horses, and there's times that horses have done the exact opposite and like the exact opposite of what he thought. I only have one race to look at in making that determination with Fort Washington, and it's the UN. He's been closing up to 1 1/8 miles, 1 1/16 miles. So I could take him at his word, but at the same time, I don't have anything to point at on past performances or from a figure standpoint that says he improves at 1.25 miles. And that's kind of where I'm at with him. I liked him in the Wise Dan. He had he had no chance with the trip against the pace that he ran into. But that being said, I just don't know if he's a true 1.25 horse.
Darin, what price do you think Mystic Dan's going to go off?
That's a good question. Because he always takes probably more money than he should, right?
It's Derby there.
Yeah. 4-1.
I think it'll be the 3rd choice. I think Fort Washington will be the 2nd choice, but we'll see.
2nd choice?
Fort Washington's a funny horse because really prior to last time, he never really gets bet. I remember telling Brian Nadeau down at Gulfstream made him the morning line favorite in the Canadian turf. And I thought to myself, man, I don't like this horse at all at 5-2. And he ends up going off 5.5-1 and winning. Yeah. And it was just one of those where, when they don't get bet, generally there's that late action doesn't come in. And we can all figure out where a lot of the late action comes from. But it's an interesting question. I don't know. I'm glad I didn't have to make the prices for the race. I think the easiest thing was that Integration is going to be a heavy favorite. But, Mystic Dan is coming off a 101 buyer. I know it was on dirt. He's the Kentucky Derby winner. I have a feeling he could drift down to like 3-1 in this race. I think there's just a lot of popularity. There's a lot of fanfare around him running in here. Worth noting, Kenny McPeak has moved 6 horses to turf for the first time in graded stakes going long in the last 5 years. Other than Classic Causeway, who rode a gold rail to win the Belmont Derby, the other 5 were all winless, and nobody was better than 6th.
And that was a trainer switch on Classic.
That was a trainer switch indeed. Yes, sir, it was.
All right. Well, before we move on to our fades of the week, Darin, tell us about the promos and tournaments.
Yeah, on the promo side, we'll stick with what we're talking about. So we have our summer selected money back. And that is going to feature the Colonial Downs stakes races. So we have 7 stakes races at Colonial Downs. All 7 of them are featured in the summer selected money back on Saturday. There's a couple of races as well on Sunday at, I believe, Ellis Park. So take a look at that. But you can wager on all of the Arlington Million Stakes undercard and the Arlington Million itself with some confidence that you can get up to $10 for your money back with the summer selected offer. And there's an abundance of other offers as well. Some really cool ones in the middle of the week. Colonial actually ran one the last couple of days that was extremely popular that we thought was really cool, where it was an escalator sharing in a kind of a hit and split up in the win pool. And based on the number of winners you have, you kind of moved up the ladder. And if you had the highest amount, which was 5 winners, you would actually share in all 3 of the pools, which total $3,000, which is not a bad proposition for making win bets at $10. So that was a pretty cool offer. And we're keeping the Colonial theme going, obviously, with the summer selected. In terms of the tournaments, we've got a big one tomorrow. Obviously, it's going to include the Arlington Million. It's also going to include the card at Saratoga. It is a qualifier for the Mint Millions Betting Challenge. So the Mint Millions Betting Challenge is going to be similar to the Stephen Foster, where it's going to award NHC, BCBC, and KDBC seats. We're guaranteeing 4 seats from that qualifier into the big event on September the 6th. And right now, there's still time to get involved in a bonus feeder for that, which currently is sitting at awarding 9 seats to tomorrow's qualifier, and that's on Saratoga as well. A lot of great stuff in the tournaments, guys. A huge weekend of racing. Excited to offer a lot of different things to the players.
And to close out, we'll do our rapid fire fades, and I'll go ahead and start this one. I'll go with number 2, Impulse Buy at 4-1 in race 6, the 7 furlong Tyson Gilpin Stakes for 3-year-old fillies. This is a filly who's 2 for 6 for her career and switching back to dirt after a poor showing in her lone turf try for Rudy Broussais. She did break her maiden by 11 lengths at today's distance and won the Fern Creek Stakes at 6.5 furlongs at Churchill. But she is 3rd in Prime Power. If you go by Bristnet Prime Power, she's 4 points lower than the 1 GW's Girl, who I think has a shot dropping down in class after facing Graded Stakes Company. And I see a couple other prices that are worth backing here. The 6 is intriguing at 10-1. I thought the 9 looked good, unbeaten from 2 starts for Kenny McPeak. So it's not my strongest fade, but I'd rather play some other prices with potential as opposed to going to this kind of lukewarm morning line favorite as it is an Impulse Buy. Let's see, James, I'll have you go next.
All right, my fade's going to come in race 7, the Andy Guest Stakes. It's number 2, Mrs. Gambolini, 3-1 on the morning line for Safi Joseph and Tyler Gaffleone. I'm going to play against her. I like number 8, Cart Girl Sam, but there's other runners in there with John Ortiz and Miguel Clement. I took a look at it as well. I'm going to fade the favorite, morning line favorite, Mrs. Gambolini, number 2 in race 7, the Andy Guest Stakes.
All right, Darin, you're up.
No balls in the 8th race, the Van Cleef. Just a horse that I think is probably not what he was a couple of years ago. Carries a bit of a cachet to him. Seems to always get bet everywhere he goes. His lone stakes win since his win in the Breeders' Cup in 2023 came over the synthetic at Woodbine in the Kennedy Road last November. He's been 7-5, 2-5 his last 2 starts and lost both of those. And I just think with the speed outside here in the form of Coppola and a couple of the others, I thought there were some other areas to go. I thought Witty from the inside was very interesting, coming out of a race won by Bring the Band Home, who parlayed that victory into a smashing win in Graded Stakes Company right back the next time out in Saratoga. And if you take a look at his previous efforts, in terms of Witty, they were pretty sharp. And if he gets an honest pace set up, I think he's a viable player in here. So we're going to fade No Balls, who I imagine is going to take a lot of money once again.
Do we expect him to actually run?
What's that?
Right. He did just run, August 3rd. So I am curious to see if we actually see him run. But
I assumed he was. I didn't think he was or not. But maybe no, he's not running back. Oh,
I don't.
No, the 1, 2, 3 from the Ellis race plus Mr. M or Mr. are all out in there.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Look, you made a very compelling
So that
case
was a good
against
fade, Darin.
Nobody's arguing that, right? And I think you're going to be right.
So No Balls is not going to win this race.
He's not 100.
I'll tell you what. Then if Coppola goes off favorite, I'll give you Coppola as the favorite.
He's not running either.
Oh, there you go.
But we will
We're
not
actually
let
going to
you
have
go
3
on.
runners. Well, Darin gave you a pick in the race instead. You got
He
Witty.
gave you a pick. That's what matters. He likes Witty.
And
James,
Nate,
Yeah, James gave out the fade I was going to do with Mrs. Gambolini, and I will not let the public have two fades. So Saratoga race 11, fade the one, Practical Love, recent Bill Mott, maiden winner, had a perfect trip that day, stalking outside. I think meets a pretty salty one other than field. I really like Alieska, who breaks from the three post in there. Should improve second off the layoff for Chad Brown, and figures to be the second choice or so, with Practical Love getting a lot of the action breaking from the rail.
All right. Apologies if we had no graphics on that segment today. I think Blaze was distracted because he had his water back on in his hotel room.
He's very excited. Yeah. Did you get a text? I got a text.
I did. I guess he's taking a shower now. There we go. There's a graphic. There's our all access Arlington Million graphic with Nick and I. We will be on site later today, actually, for the nighttime card at Colonial, and tomorrow all day for Arlington Million Day. So be sure to check that out. And we'll be back next Thursday with more of our best bets and fades for our TwinSpires jury.